Hey, folks, welcome back to the podcast. This is the Finch Show, and I am James Finch. Here we're talking 3D printing, cosplay, and anything nerdy and rad. My guest on this episode of the podcast comes to us all the way from Australia. She is Jems. She goes by Jemsmems on Instagram, TikTok. She does so many fun things, and she was just great to talk to. I'm going to get out of the way without further ado. Here's Jems. We're recording this like as San Diego Comic-Con is going on, and neither one of us are there, which like sucks to begin with, right? But out of everything that got announced out of that, which one's got you the most excited?
Oh, 100% that we've got Matt Murdock, Daredevil, coming back. Oh, I am so excited. Not only that that character is coming back, but the fact that Charlie Cox is going to be coming back as that character, it has me just so excited. Obviously, when we saw Vincent in Hawkeye, I was like immediately just ready to go. I was like, okay, where's Daredevil? Bring him out, bring him out. But yeah, no, as soon as I saw that, I was just over the moon. Everything else is kind of like, wow, that's awesome. Wow, that's awesome. Like Loki season 2, also a fantastic one coming out. But when I saw that, I was just absolutely over the moon. I think that's my favorite Marvel show. So yeah.
I think I'm right there with you. I think that we got teased so much in No Way Home with the cameo that ever since then, I'm like, he can't not be coming back. Like you can't put him in that scene and then be like, oh yeah, but we're not going to do anything with the character. Like you 100%. And those Netflix Marvel shows, like, Daredevil, Iron Fist, to some degree or another, good or not, but Daredevil, like top to bottom, was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. Like just I also just love the fight choreography in it as well. I think it's unmatched to any other show I've seen, especially in the Marvel universe. I think it's just phenomenal. Like the way that they can plan these fight scenes and have it kind of where obviously his stunt double or, fight double is, in the scene doing the action and then it swaps to him is just phenomenal. I think I'm using the word phenomenal way too much, but I mean, what other word can you use to describe that show? It's just, it's great.
Yeah. I mean, that whole hallway fight scene in the first season, like alone, like phenomenal, right? Like,
it is phenomenal. I think my favorite one, the only one that trumps it was, I can't remember what season it's in, but it's once he's got the suit, and it's the stairway scene. Where it's kind of like the camera's traveling down the stairway with him. I thought that was just insane. Like it was just insane camera work as well, So
yeah, that was one where he had like a chain, like duct tape to his hand, and was just like, I don't want to meet that guy in a dark alley for sure.
No.
What did you think of the other Netflix shows?
Yeah, so look, I just don't think any of them. None of them. It doesn't. There's no match, honestly. Like it's just I don't really think that Iron Fist had anything special. Jessica Jones was all right. I didn't see too much of it because I got a bit bored. But yeah, look, again, I think it's just not matched, basically.
Right. Well, Iron Fist, as much as I wanted to like it, it just felt really inconsistent. Like when they first introduced the character, he's like happy-go-lucky, zen, everything is fine. Everything is great. And then he spends like the rest of the season mad that his parents died. And by the time you get to the end of the show, like all the other like major characters in that show had like way worse things happen to them than just their parents dying. And yet all we are is focused on how angry he is. And that just felt to me like came off really deaf.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it was really you could really see it when he was around the other characters as well, where he was just he just seemed whiny, and it was like I was ticking off this little bingo list every single episode as soon as he'd say, "I'm the immortal Iron Fist." It's like, no one cares. It's like, settle down. Right. You don't see Matt Murdock coming out going, "I am Daredevil. Listen to me." You know what I mean? It's like, oh, his character was just so obnoxious. I couldn't handle it. But you know, there's so much what's the word? I feel like there is hope for his character. I think they could build on it if they really wanted to, but I think the hatred for him in the community by this point is just a bit too much that they won't care to.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I think Marvel's just kind of let go to the dustbin, like just let it drop, because at this point in time, the character is redeemable, but you'd have to recast it and like introduce it in a whole new way, which then that makes the Netflix shows no longer canon. You know, you end up in that goofy thing. Like, I thought Defenders, the show, was good, mainly because of Daredevil. And I'm like, you know, because Matt Murdock is there, and yeah, some of the interactions amongst the characters was kind of cool the way they did it. But by and large, Matt Murdock coming back, I'm so beyond thrilled with that. And
so thrilled.
What so you said you like Loki. Out of the Disney Plus shows, which ones are you thumbs up and which ones are you thumbs down?
Yeah, I think at the bottom of my list would definitely be oh my god, I'm blanking. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Sorry, I was like, there was so many names in my head just said, Falcon and the Winter Soldier just really has to be at the bottom of my list. I was never excited to watch it every week. With all the other shows, I've been excited when the day comes around where I can watch it. And I think it was just purely because I never really resonated with both those characters in any of the like the movies prior. And I never really connected with their characters. So I think with every other show that we've seen, you know, it's just been awesome. Like, I've been really looking forward to every single day when it comes around that I can watch the episode. I think the one that I was most into was definitely Moon Knight. Moon Knight was fantastic. I think everything about it was just so exciting, and I was so thrilled to watch it every day, like every week. And just not only the story, but just the visuals, like the cinematography was just insane. Can you tell I'm a film student? No, but look, I think everything needs to come together in that regard. Whereas other shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Hawkeye and so they just didn't have special moments where there was those little moments that really captured the character. Like, you know, in Moon Knight, when he jumped down off that building and he saw the moon crescent cape, it was just so iconic. And when he jumped across from building to building and he was in at one point in the middle where the moon was, and it was just like this beautiful shot. And I just didn't see that in any of those other shows. So I couldn't really go, oh, wow, what a cool shot. So I think without having those moments, it was lackluster for me. But I mean, WandaVision as well just knocked it out of the park for me.
Hawkeye, I agree. Like, it felt very lackluster. The only thing that made that show in any way, shape, redeemable was towards the end when Yelena came in. Like, she like gave it a whole new spice and pizzazz, and I'm kind of like, well, can we just have a show with her, or like a franchise of movies? Because that's all I care about at this point. Maybe it's just me. I've never been a huge like Jeremy Renner fan to begin with. Like, I just or Hawkeye, like just the character, even like outside of the MCU. Okay, you're bringing a bow and arrow. Cool. No, I agree. It's kind of just like, but that's how I feel about Black Widow as well. I've never been a Black Widow fan. I think she's gorgeous. I think she's kick-ass, but at the same time, I just have never found anything special about her or Jeremy Renner's character either. It's just like, there's a few Avengers that people absolutely love, and I totally respect everyone's opinion on their favorite Avenger, but it's just like, there's a few for me that I just kind of go, not that interesting. But some of them, like Black Widow, we sort of like have this thing where we feel like we should care
Yeah.
You know, like she's an Avenger. I should probably care about that, right?
Yeah.
I didn't think the
Yeah.
Black Widow movie was bad. Like I didn't hate it by any stretch of the
No.
imagination, but it also didn't knock your socks off. It didn't make you go, "Oh
Mm.
my god." You know, you come away from like Endgame and like No Way Home with these like epic moments in your head. And
Yeah.
yeah, Black Widow didn't really stick that at all, I don't think.
No, no, and I don't think so. But it, like, again, it's kind of like Thor. It was enjoyable and it was enough, and it was, you know, it is what it is. And like if that serves for one person who's absolutely obsessed with Black Widow and wanted a Black Widow movie, then it's done its thing. It's achieved its goal. So I think there's room for every movie that we've seen, every film that we've seen. There's room for it in the universe, and it's serving to someone.
Well, I firmly feel like when it comes to the MCU, I personally anyway, I feel like there has not been a bad MCU movie. Just some are better than others. You know, there isn't one that I kind of like for example, what was the second Thor movie? Why am I drawing a blank?
Oh, and so am I.
Oh my. Oh, Dark World, Thor the Dark World. Yeah, I didn't think it was terrible, but it's not going to be like, oh God, you guys are watching this, sweet. You know, it's just there. You know, it felt safe. You know, it told a Thor story without like fundamentally changing the character, doing anything risky.
Yeah.
I just feel like we've gotten to a point where I feel sometimes like, for example, like Endgame, No Way Home, we end up with these MCU movies that are so epic and so good that then that becomes like the new measuring standard. You know, like some people were hating on Thor Love and Thunder because it didn't like blow their socks off. And it's like, well, it was an entertaining movie. Like, that's what it was meant to do. It
wasn't meant to blow your socks off, I don't think. I think it was meant for comic relief. I think it was just super fun, really funny, but emotional at times as well. And I think it was just a lovely movie. Like it felt nice to watch and nice to be there with like a whole cinema full of people who were laughing along with you. I think that was just an enjoyable experience. I didn't think it needed to be this wow thing, but I think there is this toxic culture starting where it's, you know, people are expecting big cameos, people are expecting big nostalgia hits so that they can go, oh, wow, when they walk out and go, oh my gosh, did you see that? And I think that's why people were really disappointed by the end credit scenes, because that's what a lot of Marvel fans go to these movies for. They're like, well, yeah, the movie's what it is and I can read about it, but how about the end credit scenes? Like, who's going to be in the end credit scenes? Who are they going to interact with that's not in the movie? And I think people were let down by it. And I just think it's a fantastic new character that's going to, you know, knock everyone's socks off. Like, and I don't think it needs any hate. But yeah. And to the point of bad Marvel movies, I think I wasn't the biggest fan of Morbius.
Let me rephrase my earlier. There has not been a bad MCU movie, like because technically Morbius is outside the MCU. I like so much that I actually haven't even seen it because I'm just like I mean, like my eldest son saw it and he kind of felt like it was going to suck going into it, and he went and saw it and he came home and he's like, yeah, it sucked. I'm like, okay, well then you can save, you know, maybe like a year from now I'll watch it on when it's streaming somewhere for free, but I'm not paying any money to see it. Was it truly that bad?
So, I mean, it wasn't even at the point where you could really find it enjoyable. I don't think I would ever watch it again. But having said that, I didn't watch about 30% of it because I have a really bad tolerance for gore and blood.
Okay.
And of course, the movie is literally like Twilight. Like he's constantly drinking these massive vials of like fake blood, and it's like it is just so visceral, and I really hated it because I can't deal with that kind of stuff. So for a lot of it I was just like, oh God, can you tell me when it's over, like when he stopped doing that? So I personally would never watch it again because I hated the experience of feeling that throughout the entire movie. The story itself, I think the story itself is actually fantastic. I just think the way they went about it was just not good. And the fact, also the fact when you're going into the movie knowing that he was a complete psychopath on the on the set, apparently, where he was just like doing all these random things to stay in character, and the movie just turned out the way it did. Just also makes you go, what a dick. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you never know what's going on with him, but at the same time, it's just like, and the script as well, just honestly, everything about it was just not fun. It was not an enjoyable experience for me personally. If anybody else liked it, that's good for you, but not for me.
It was not Morbin time. No,
it was not morbing time. No.
You know, at some point in time, I wish Sony would just figure out that they're not good at these. You know, they fouled up two Spider-Man franchises, you know, and now they're insistent. They're like, oh no, we're gonna go our own way now. Thanks for the help, Marvel.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of faith in them because they've like routinely completely dropped the ball on everything.
Yeah,
which is
look,
too bad.
I hate the hate on The Amazing Spider-Man, because those two movies are some of my favorite, if not my two favorite Spider-Man movies. I absolutely adore them. I have for years. And I think when people say, oh, it was such a bad script, it was such a bad this, I completely understand where they're coming from. I loved those movies. And I think those are a big part of my childhood as well, because I am quite quite young. So it was like Andy was really my Spider-Man, if that makes sense. For a lot of people who are a bit younger than me, even like 1 or 2 years younger than me, their Spider-Man was Tom Holland. So it's very much like, when I see all this now joy for Andrew Garfield coming out, I'm like, thank God, because you know, and his movies are now everywhere, and scenes from his movies are all over TikTok, and I'm just over the moon about it. And I saw this interview with him where he's like, where were all of you guys back then? Like, you're all loving me now. Where were you?
They were all in grade school, man. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, you know, the first Amazing Spider-Man I thoroughly enjoyed. Like, I thought it was really good. And I'm like older, that I like the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie I came out. I think I was like 20 or 21.
Right. Yeah.
So and then it's like, okay, you know, those were fun, but it ran the thing where by the time you got to the third Spider-Man movie, they were just they in my opinion attempted to cram too much in, and the story felt crowded. So it's like, okay, that's over. Now we're gonna do Amazing Spider-Man. This is a reboot, and I remember walking out of the theater after the first one, going, that was really good. That was great.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely no hate on Toby. Everybody has their opinion, but I kind of came out going, I thought he was a better Peter Parker than Tobey Maguire was, 100%.
Yeah.
The second one, I just feel like, while I thought Andrew Garfield's performance was great, and there were other great acting performances in that movie, I just feel like it ran the same mistake that the third Spider-Man movie did, where they tried to cram too much in. And I felt terrible afterwards, because I remember Andrew Garfield talking about it, and him saying that when he read the original script for Spider-Man 2, he loved it. The problem is, once they got filming, the studios got involved, and all these executives were like, you have to cram this in there, you have to cram that in there. And so they were doing reshoots and trying to, but they couldn't go too far over schedule, so they had to try and edit what they already had. And you know, that's why I think like the last 45 minutes of that movie just feels like a jumbled mess, because you almost feel like that you can feel the director pulling his hair out, like trying to get all this in, which is too bad. I feel like the entire history of Spider-Man and Spider-Man movie franchises could be different if the studios had just let the director do his thing. Just let him tell the story he was attempting to tell.
I mean, that's there for a lot of movies, though. that same saying, you know, it's but sometimes it's the other way around as well. Sometimes directors don't listen and it goes bad. But I have to agree with that. I just personally, I think that Emma Stone is the best love interest of any Spider-Man movie I've seen.
Yes. 100%. Yeah, no doubt. The interesting thing, just as a side note, because I got to ask this because you live in Australia, like when it's like a release date for like an MCU movie here in the States, is it the same in Australia? Like, are you looking forward to like the same release date, or are they slightly different?
I mean, honestly, I'm not too sure. Basically, as soon as it's released here, we we all like if it's an MCU movie, we go and see it like at 12 o'clock when it's released. But having said that, I've never seen any spoilers for it before that. I've never seen something from the States or anywhere else in the world where it spoiled that for me. So I would have to say, surely it wouldn't be more than a few days that it's released after. I know some movies can be released quite far ahead in the States before it gets here in other, like for other movies and other universes and stuff like that. But for the MCU, I think they keep it very tight everywhere. Like I know for the new cut of Spider-Man, that's coming out in September. We're getting it September 1st. And I think they had a whole, they did a post on their Instagram about all the dates it was going to be released around the world. And it looked like it was going to be within at least like 4 days of everywhere, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think it's relatively clean here where we don't get spoilers before we see the movie, which I love because I hate spoilers. I think the only movie that I went crazy for spoilers over was No Way Home. I knew every single spoiler except for Matt Murdock in the entire movie because I was just too keen. I was too excited to see if Andy and Toby were going to be in it. I knew exactly when they were going to show up. I knew what was happening. But again, I only saw that 2 hours before I went into the movie. I only found that out. So again, it's very tight-lipped here, which is great for us.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that. And I don't know, like I could be completely speaking out of my rear end here. But I sort of get the feeling like for English speaking countries, they tend to release at the same time, which you would have to, I think, to avoid spoilers or at least keep it fairly tight, like you said. But it'll be always interesting because like a movie like, Multiverse of Madness will come out and then I'll see like somewhere posted like a week later that, the movie opened in France today, and I'm like, and then a week later it opened in China. And I'm like, okay. I'm sure there's something about that I don't understand. I don't know why you wouldn't just release it worldwide. Like,
no, totally. I know that for Malaysia, I have one of my viewers on my live. He lives in Malaysia, and they said that they weren't getting Thor like at all. It's like it's just like not showing. Or I think it's Malaysia. It's I'm pretty sure it's Malaysia, but somewhere they were like, it's to be confirmed when the release date's going to be, but it still isn't showing. I'm not sure. But they were telling, they could be speaking now their ass because it's on a live show. But I find that very interesting that they're like, I can't watch Thor because it's not here. Like I can't go and see it anywhere. So that could be because of some of the themes that are in it. I'm not sure, but it's crazy how some places you can't actually experience the things that you want to experience.
Yeah, and I guess you never know with some countries like where the politics come involved. Especially in countries where they don't have as much freedom of expression, and you may end up with something, I don't know. And again, maybe I'm speaking out of my ass, but I could see you getting something like that, like China or someplace like that, where they're like, no, we want time for like our government officials to see the movie. Make sure you're not sneaking in any kind of like pro-capitalist like nonsense in there, and then it's going to turn our people against us, right? Yeah, I could see that. Wow, that's pretty wild. I was the same. I was like, No Way Home was frustrating for me because I wasn't able to go see it opening night. Like I was able to go see it the second night, but I wasn't able to go see it the first night. And I did everything in my power to avoid spoilers. Like I don't want to know anything. But I do have a friend who went and saw it opening night. And I saw him the next day before I went and saw it. He just walks up to me with a smile on his face. And I'm like, and I just had to look at him and be like, are they in it? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, good. That's all I want to know.
Yeah. I feel like that's all anyone wanted to know going in, because they were like, I'm going to be severely disappointed if they are not in it because it's such a big rumor. But it was just everywhere. It was everywhere. You could not keep it a secret after the premiere. Honestly, it was just, it was crazy. That was one of the most anticipated movies since Endgame, I reckon. But it was lots of fun. Lots of fun, that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think after that, for Multiverse of Madness, I made sure that I didn't spoil anything for myself, because I was like, look, if I hadn't have known when Toby and Andy were going to be in it, maybe I would have enjoyed Spider-Man more than I already did. I was like crying. I was like, oh my God. For Multiverse of Madness, I went in completely blind, which was a really good experience.
Mm-hmm. The funny thing about Multiverse of Madness, which I did enjoy, I did enjoy it. There were people on the internet and other places who were upset after the movie came out because they felt like one complaint I saw was that they thought that there would be more cameos.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sort of like, is that Marvel's fault or is that the internet's fault? Is that your fault for expecting too much? Reddit and these places go wild with rumors, really insane stuff like, oh, wow, did you hear that Tom Cruise is playing Namor? And then these crazy things. And then people get their head, especially after No Way Home, right? They get in their head that they're going to go in and like so many crazy things are going to blow their brains out. And then, this is like a side note, but I think this is really important for people to know. There's I was reading this paper by a psychologist who was talking about expectation. And basically what he's saying is, if you see a movie and you think it is the greatest movie you've ever seen, and you walk up to a friend of yours and you say, go see this movie, it will be the greatest movie you ever saw. At that point, it is guaranteed it will not be the greatest movie that person ever saw, because you built their expectations so high beyond what can possibly be achieved. So I always try to temper my enthusiasm for anything, because I'm like, if you walk in there, and I think that's a problem that the internet has. I think that's the problem that the world has now, is that we're in this age where everything is either the greatest thing ever or it sucks. No in between. It's like a movie can be a B-. That's okay. It can be good but not great.
No, for sure.
What was your thought on Multiverse of Madness?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was lots of fun. However, I do think that both Marvel and the internet really overhyped it, especially in the advertising for it. I think I remember some point there was a post by an official page that was like, oh, this has got the most cameos out of any movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And people going, okay, well, what about Endgame? What's going on then? You know what I mean? It's like, really? And I think that's what really hyped everyone up. And I think there was just so much hype and so much speculation as to what they could fit in and what they could really do with this movie, now that the multiverse was a thing and the Spider-Verse was a thing. And you know what I mean? It's just, I think people were picking apart the trailers as well, going like, oh, there's a cartoon part when they go through that weird warpy thing. Does that mean we're going to see the spider, into the Spider-Verse? You know what I mean? Are we going to see Miles? Are we going to see Spider-Gwen? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was just I think people pick apart the trailers and decide what they want to decide. Obviously, people were saying Deadpool was going to be in it from that one little crystal up in the poster. It was like, come on, guys. Personally, I have to say I did fall for that one. I did think Deadpool was going to be in it. However, I was like, well, how is it going to be an M-rated movie if he's in it? But yeah, no. So I do agree with that. I think it was very much overhyped. But still lots of fun, all other Marvel movies except a few.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair. So you said earlier that you're a film student.
I am.
What kind of inspired you to go that route?
Yeah, so I'm no longer a film student. I was a film student.
Oh, okay.
I studied what did I do? I can't even remember. I think I have a diploma in something something film related. I honestly don't use it at all. Mm-hmm. But I studied for a year. It was like college. I was in school Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It was basically like going back to school. And I was just studying all different parts of film, and it was just fantastic. We learned casting, we learned editing, we learned lighting, sound. Every day there was a new thing that we'd learn, and it was such a revolutionary thing to me, because I'd been to universities, and universities in Sydney, especially for the arts, don't do it necessarily correctly, because there's a lot of essays and a lot of theory work. You don't actually do any hands-on work. So I feel like this film school was really catered towards me, and it gave me a fresh perspective on things that I could do within the film industry, not just like, oh, I'm going to be the next director. You know what I mean? It's very unlikely that would happen, as much as I love that. Very unlikely. So I got to look at all different other departments of film. And now I'm not doing any, but I'm not doing anything to do with film, other than I'm a video editor for my job. I'm a 9-to-5 worker on Monday to Friday, so weekends are my content creator times, and every part in between is normal life.
What the interesting thing about that is that having gone through that training, does that give you a appreciation, perspective, and even a level of criticism when you're watching a lot of these things?
Oh, 100%. I think it gives you such a fresh perspective on how hard people work on movies, because, you create a short film, it takes you weeks as a film student, and then you see something like a Marvel movie come out, and you're like, I understand why it takes so long. I understand why you're telling me that it's going to be released the summer of 2023. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think it does give you such an insight into how things are made. But it also, it is a detriment, because when you're in the movies, you're like, if something is off, or if you see something and you go, oh, that's where they switch there, or that's where they switch the stunt double to the actual actor, you don't actually enjoy the movie much anymore. You're just criticizing it. But luckily enough, I've been away from film school enough to not focus on that too much anymore. Because in film school, all we did was pick apart, short films and pick apart movies. So I think it's just enjoyable having that knowledge, and if it's super useful as well, because I use it for my content creation. So yeah,
I agree 100%. One of the and I know exactly what you mean, like not necessarily on the film thing, but it's like, okay, so one of my hobbies is that for years I have been an archer. Like, I shoot bow and arrow.
Oh wow.
I love doing it. I've probably shot, like, I don't know how many thousands of arrows throughout the course of my life. Let me tell you, Jeremy Renner wouldn't know a bow from a hole in the ground, because he holds it wrong every single time. I mean, and it's to the point where it's like, I try not to let it eat at me, but every single time he pops on screen holding that thing, you're just like,
oh, I can't imagine. That must be so irritating.
Oh, it is. And there are scenes in some of those, and I recognize that what he's trying to do is just be an actor and do the scene and let them CGI everything else after. But there are so many scenes in, like, the first Avengers movie and Age of Ultron where I'm watching it. And I don't know if you understand this feeling, but, whenever you're watching anything, right, the whole point of the storytelling is to take you on a path of suspended belief. Like, you go along with this journey. And I don't know, but like, it frustrated me, because then something like that would happen. It would yank me back to reality in the middle of the movie. Be like, oh, jeez. Okay.
Yes.
That's bad. And I thought it was really upsetting, because Haley Steinfeld, who played Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye show, when she first got signed to that role, she went and was doing a whole bunch of archery training, because she wanted to look good holding the bow on camera. We actually showed up to filming. Jeremy Renner, don't worry about that. Just hold the bow. CGI will do the rest in post. And it's like, and then in that show, she's holding the bow wrong too. Hers is slightly better. You can tell she actually had some archery training background.
Yeah.
Jeremy Renner, I don't think he's ever shot a real bow in his life, because it is so horrible. So when you say that,
so disappointing.
You get caught picking things apart. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Oh God. I feel like that. I get that experience whenever I see people in movies pretending to be social media stars or social media creators.
Yeah.
Especially in Miss Marvel. Oh my God. The way it started out, it was great. She seemed like a someone who didn't have any followers, and she was just doing it for fun, and she was creating a YouTube video. But then when it went to this other girl, Zoe, did you watch Miss Marvel?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure before I was like, Zoe, and you're like, who? But that mean girl, Zoe, she just was everything that I feel like really irritates content creators when they see them portrayed in a movie. She's like, comment, subscribe. It's like, I don't think I've ever said those three things in conjunction ever. And it's like, I'm sure people do. I'm sure there's content creators that think that is how they get, people to follow them. But it's just like, you can tell when people who don't do social media, don't try to get a following, don't try to post on the daily and try to get followers, try to create a character that is doing that. It's very funny because they come off as a very obnoxious, self-centered person. And I don't want to toot my own horn. I'm not an obnoxious, self-centered person, but it's hard to not portray myself as that when I'm creating content that is just entirely me, what I mean? So that's the same feeling as I get when when you see the Hawkeye not doing the bow correctly. I feel that exact same feeling.
Yeah, you understand it completely. What did you think of Miss Marvel?
Oh, fantastic. It was a fantastic show. Personally, the way I explain it to people who haven't watched it yet, I say it's literally the female version of Spider-Man, and the same, I feel like it's this origin story where it's like this dorky kid who doesn't know where she fits in the world finally gets powers, something that she actually really wanted, but it's like now available to her because Peter Parker was the same. Peter Parker was seeing all these cool people like the Avengers. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is who I'm kind of referencing here, but he was seeing all the Avengers and like, oh, wow, and obviously he had this little power that he was using, but all of a sudden now it's been, he's an Avenger. So it's like, I feel like it's the same path for her. And I feel like she's such an incredible role model for young girls. I have a young sister who's 11 and she adores her. And I'm so glad she adores her. And she's not like, oh, she's, cringe or she's, dorky. I don't like her. I think the fact that she likes her just shows me that she is a good role model. And I adore her and I adore her character and I adore the show. So I hope we see more of her.
I agree. I enjoyed it. I very much did. That's been one of those shows that has sort of like, the consensus is kind of split on it. There's some people who really loved it. And then, there are people who just were like, yeah, I quit after the second episode. I'm not watching that.
I mean, when it's going up against Obi-Wan on Disney Plus, I mean, it's difficult, but apparently it's it's the most watched Marvel show on Disney Plus. I think that's correct. I think that's correct. I heard that the other day, but I could be wrong. So don't quote me on that.
You're going to get canceled.
I did hear that someone said that to me at work the other day. And I was like, what? And they go, yeah. So, they could have been talking out of their ass, but we'll see.
It does seem to be a theme for sure. Yeah, yes. I enjoyed it. And I remember reading the comic when that one first premiered. They did like a big switcheroo. I think it was like in the mid 2000s because for a long time in the comics, Carol Danvers was Miss Marvel. And, the way she was portrayed in the comics, like she wore a leotard and had the big curly blonde hair and the other big stuff. And then Marvel felt the need in the comics to get with the times and they rebranded her as Captain Marvel and focused more on her power than her looks. And then at the same time, they introduced Miss Marvel, which was the Kamala character. I really enjoyed the show. I thought it did. Directing wise and storytelling wise, I think they did some quirky, fun things where the text conversations incredible. On the window, those kind of things. So I thought that was a lot of fun. One of the things that interested me is when it did the flashback early on, I want to say it was like either the first or second episode to when they first find that bangle in the ruins. I don't know if you caught this, but the seal that was on the floor that they were standing, they only showed it for like a second, was the seal of the 10 rings.
Yes.
So I feel like there has to be a connection between the bangle and the 10 rings that Shang-Chi has. That's what I want to know. Like where this is I feel like not enough's being talked about because I want to know, right?
Yes. So I didn't catch that, but I was watching with my boyfriend Tom and he did catch it and he's like, oh, did you see that? And I'm like, see what? And we rewinded it, and I was like, oh, yeah, of course that's happened, because, when can Marvel just do something without referencing something else? No, but I love Shang-Chi, and if that means that we're going to see a crossover, that would be great. I'd love that.
That must be some kind of like weird guy thing. Because the exact same thing happened when me and my wife were watching it. Because I'm like, oh, did you see it? And she's just like, how do you see this shit? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I wasn't, He saw
the QR code on the wall as well and was like, oh, wait, we got to pause. And he put his phone up to it, scanned it. And of course he gets like a free comic or something from Miss Marvel. And I was like, can we just watch?
Right. Definitely. So as we talk about all that and we switch over to the cosplay side of things, for you being a cosplayer, what made you want to get into that?
It was really just boredom. So I used to do a lot of art. I'm a big fan of just kind of sitting down for hours and doing a weird artwork that has absolutely nothing to do with the artwork that I do the previous week. It might be watercolor or sculpture or something. And I used to just create content on those and put them up on TikTok, and never really got any success with it. Not that I wanted to. It's more that for years I was creating YouTube videos when I was about 15 to about 18. And then I stopped because I was kind of trying to do all these comedy bits that fell through, and I didn't really enjoy doing comedy. I was like, I'm not that much of a funny person, so I'm just gonna end it here. But I decided that I kind of wanted to keep doing content in some other capacity. And last October, we had a Halloween party to go to. And I decided that I was like, okay, I'm going to get a really cool suit. I want to go as Spider-Gwen because I loved her character, and we'd just seen Spider-Verse again, Into the Spider-Verse, sorry, again. We'd just bought a 4K TV, and it was the first movie we watched because it's just obviously it's a mint movie to watch as the first one. Yeah. So and I was like, that's the costume. I'm gonna get that, and I'm gonna wear it to this Halloween party. And as soon as I put it on, I went, I want to feel like this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel like a superhero all the time. And I'm like, if I could wear this all day, every day, I would. I mean, it gets very hot in the costume, but I was like, this just, I feel so powerful, and I want to conquer the world. And I just can. That's kind of what also catapulted my love for everything superhero and everything supervillain and everything, in the dorky, geeky world that I was already consumed with. But it just elevated it. And I was going, every time I was watching a show, I was going, oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. I want to portray that character. That's what I want to do. And it just kept leading to more and more costumes. And I started off buying stuff from like eBay. And then I kind of started going, okay, well, I'm going to create something. I'm going to create a variant of this character and a variant of this character. And I think it just got to a certain point where I was like, I want to start doing this seriously. I want to seriously create content every single day and build up a following so that I can, be in a community of people who really love and admire the things that I'm creating. And that's what I set out to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks phenomenal.
Sorry, long-winded response to that question.
Hey, that's what podcasts are for. That's fine.
Yeah.
The cool. I love it. Well, your cosplay looks great for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have ideas in your head of future stuff that you'd love to do, or?
Yeah. So, on the way, I've got two on the way. I've got Black Cat on the way, Felicia. She's in the mail. And I've also got Homelander on the way as well. Yes. Are you the Boys fan?
Yes.
Thank goodness. Yeah. So I had a lot of people cheering me on to do Starlight, a lot of people cheering me on to do Queen Maeve, and I was just like, I'm sorry, but my big takeaway from the Boys was Homelander. you can't beat that character. You just can't. His character is so iconic to the show. And I just wanted to, I've never portrayed a villain before. I think the closest I've come to portray a villain would be Elektra. I've done a few Elektra stuff, but she's kind of on the edge where she's not necessarily good, not necessarily bad.
Anti-hero,
But I just really, really was so, I don't want to say inspired because he's a totally terrible person. He's horrid. Yes. But he's the best villain I've ever known in a universe other than Darth Vader, obviously, from Star Wars. Like he's OG. He's the scariest. That's just can't beat that. But you know, I had to portray Homelander in some sort of way, and I was like, if I can make a femme version of him, that would just be iconic. And I'm so excited to create some content with that suit. So I just have to wait till it arrives.
I'm looking forward to it. I want to see that. I have a friend of mine by the name of Kayla who's been on this podcast, and her and I were just texting the other day because she also wants to do Homelander. Like that's something she's really excited to do, the whole gender bend on it. And so we had already come to this agreement that, you know, if she does it, then I just need to dress up as like Butcher, and we need to go to a con together and spend the entire con just fighting, like randomly bumping into each other and just, you know, having it out. And that show, oh my God. Like that's one of those, I don't want to say touchy shows, but it's one of those, the content in it is like so deep that it's like everybody you meet, they're either like, that's too much for me, or they're like, oh my God, it's amazing. Like it's always one or the other, right?
100%. 100%. And when we first started The Boys, we started it quite late because we'd been hearing amazing things about it. But at the same time, we were on so many other shows that were coming out at the time. And we just finished Invincible. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
I haven't yet. I keep hearing great things.
We come off Invincible and we were like, all we want is more Invincible. And it was the perfect transition. It is literally the same show, but live action, obviously with other, you know, other topics. But it was just like all this anti-hero stuff that we'd been seeing for weeks in Invincible. And now in a live action show that's going to continue on for years. It's just like, it's exactly what we needed, I think, from seeing all these Marvel shows where it's like, everything's good, everything's great, you know? And it's like, with this, it's just like, you can hate people, you can hate them. And I hate Homelander, but I love to hate him.
Yes. I say lean into it. Like, just go ahead and just tell people, like, no, Homelander's the best. He's right about everything. I agree with everything he's ever done. And you're going to hate me for it. I mean, just lean into it. You know, why not? But that, you know, the funny thing about that show is I tell people who have never seen it, you know, because you ever get that thing where like there's a really good show or really good movie and you're trying to like talk somebody into it. I just tell people, like, listen, go put the first episode of The Boys on. If you're not hooked in the first 15 minutes, then the show's not for you. Because that was one of the shows where it's like, you know, spoilers for those who haven't seen season 1 of The Boys, like right off the bat when like A-Train runs through Huey's girlfriend. And for those of you who haven't seen the show, he runs through her girlfriend.
Runs through
like that's not a euphemism. Like he literally
obliterates.
And like I remember like watching the show, like, okay, it's, well, you know, because I saw it when it first came out. I'm like, okay, you know, in one of these superhero shows, and grab the pod, sit back and watch it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. And then after that, it's just off to the races for 3 seasons.
It's just crazy. I think if I was to go back and watch the first episode again, I would just find it so interesting though, because everyone would be so different. And it's the character development as well. It's like there's no character development, but there is character development. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like no one's changed from season 1, yet everything seems different. It's crazy. It blew my mind, honestly, just watching the first episode of this season, because I was like, okay, we're back into the absolute absurdity that is this show already.
Right.
I thought we were going to start a bit calm and then work our way up to herogasm, but obviously not. It's like the first episode was way worse than any other part of the show. Like, oh my God. And the thing is, I did talk my dad into watching it. I talked my dad into watching The Boys. And obviously my little sister lives with my dad and my mum. And she's 11. So dad only gets to watch it when my little sister goes to bed. But my sister was part of the conversation the other day I was over. And she goes, oh, yeah, I hear like terrible things. I hear the worst noises. What's going on in that show? And I'm like, never go out while dad is watching it. Please never go into the lounge room. You will be scarred. So yeah, it's one of those shows that I think is just, if you watch it at the wrong age, it is terrible.
Yes.
It's like, you know, and I used to watch things like American Horror Story and things like that when I was quite young. And I really do think that was a detriment to, you know, how I grew up, because, you know, I watched a lot of things that I wasn't old enough to watch yet. But The Boys is just a step up from that. And it's one of those shows that's so outrageous. It needs to just be
Yeah. Well, it even said that the disclaimer at the beginning of one of the episodes, like this, like nobody should actually really watch this, like ever.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, this show's horrible. Like, it admits it. And we're in the same position. Me and my wife, like, we have kids, and it's like a new episode of The Boys, and we're like, kids, early bedtime, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's no way
off to grandma's.
Yeah.
Can't even be in the house. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Far out.
Yeah. God, I'm like, the only thing that I wasn't thrilled about was at the end of it when they like icebox Soldier Boy. I'm like, no, like I want this character, like, because he's such a great character and he's played so well on the show that I like look forward to him being like a series regular, like for seasons to come.
Yeah.
But I guess when you got somebody like that who's so OP'd, and then of course so is, you know, Homelander. You know, if they're going to be, if they became buddies and, you know, they could just rule the world and nobody could stop them on the flip side, or is the show just going to be those two fighing constantly? But on the other hand, they did just put him in cryo. So there's definitely room for him to still come back.
I think the only thing that I would say is a little off about the show is that every single season seems to be about taking down Homelander. And I think people have come to the realization that he's not going anywhere ever. Yeah. He is the show. So I think the show needs to find a new plot. And at one point stick to that. I don't know. I think just because people know it's too obvious nothing's going to happen to Homelander. It's too obvious he's going to win every time. So yeah, that's the only thing I would suggest, maybe creating a different plot point, which we might see in season 4. I'm not sure. But I think at the end of at the end of season 2, I really liked the ending of that because they got ahead of him and they really got a hold of him, and they were like, I don't know, they felt like they had control. So that really gave me hope for the next season, where I was like, oh, cool, maybe there's a different plot point other than Homelander. But then they made it all about Homelander again. So I was like, well, I know he's not going anywhere. I know he's not going to lose his powers. Like, it wouldn't work. So yeah, I don't know. That's the only thing, but it's still so enjoyable.
I so much to the point where it's like you were saying earlier, like you understand why it takes them so long to make new movies or new seasons, but I really wish it didn't. Like, I just want to snap my fingers. And like, if I had the Infinity Stones, that's the first thing I do. Like season 4 of The Boys, bam, right there.
I do season 2 of Invincible because we've been waiting for that for so long now. Oh my God.
When did season 1 of that come out? It's been a while. Yeah.
I can't even remember. I think we were watching it early 2021. I think that's when we started. I think that's when we finished it, early 2021. But far out. It's been a while. Yeah.
Usually those animated shows, they can turn around quicker than, that's why, of course, I sort of feel that way. Like, it's been how many years now since Into the Spider-Verse has come out, and I'm like, why is it taking so long for the next one? Please, come on. I know,
but that movie took so long to make.
And I can see why. It was so good. It's just so fantastic. Good. I mean, I could rave about that one. We could do a whole episode just talking about the Spider-Verse because it's so good. For sure. Well, hey, we're getting up against the clock here.
Yes.
I want to say that thank you so much for taking the time out of your Australian day to come on the podcast. And anything you want to say on the way out?
Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. I always love talking about this stuff. It's stuff that I'm super passionate about. So thanks for giving me a platform to come and have a chat about it. But yeah, you guys can find me on TikTok at Jemsmems and on Instagram at real Jemsmems. It's just real in front of it. And yeah, that is me.
All right. I love it. I love it. And yeah, once again, thank you. And yeah, I hope we get to talk to you again in the future.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to come back.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cool. You too.
All right. So that was the episode with Jems. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun talking to her. I'm going to get out of here. But before I do, I just want to say that I love all of you. Hope you take care of each other, and we'll talk to you next time.